Hey, hey. Office hours back in the office closet here in COVID Central. I have my dear mentor friend, the incredible Blaine Bartlett, learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM. If you haven't gone to the Mindset Mastermind with Blaine, you haven't learned. So welcome, Blaine. We have a special guest actually right up our alley, Michael Zipursky. He is the co-founder and CEO of Consulting Success around the world. Consultants are definitely a fast-growing group of people and a huge necessity these days, especially with the employment status here in the United States. It's so much more cost-effective to bring in a consultant than it is to permanently tie yourself to old men like Blaine and I. That's for sure. What do you think, Blaine?
Absolutely. I love seeing you appear on the guest list here, Michael. I mean, I've been consulting for almost 40 years now, and it's nice to see, just kind of somebody taking a little interesting take on this whole profession. I've always thought it was recession-proof. It's recession-proof, and it's bull-proof as far as that goes too. If you're doing it right, you're always going to be busy.
You know what I thought was funny is you and I started with the pandemic, and what we also learned was it's travel proof. Blaine and I are two people that travel 200 days a year minimum around the world. The only time we probably saw each other was at the airport. But I'm going to start here, Michael, because you have such great knowledge, experience, and such an interesting perspective on the consulting world. You talk about consulting as a team sport, which I thought was an incredible insight that I believe to be true as well. So I was hoping we'd start with you explaining how you see the team aspect in what a lot of other people deem to be an individual sport.
Yeah, great to be with you guys. I mean, I think a lot of people who transition into consulting initially do that with the goal and desire to be free of the team that they likely had when they were in the corporate world and being an executive, and so they want the freedom. And so early on, you spend those days really trying to work with as few people as possible, right? But over time, you start to realize that as your business grows, you can't do everything yourself. It only ends up slowing you down. You start to reach capacity even when you are doing great work. And as you do more great work, you just get busier and busier. And so I think the real opportunity for all consultants, and certainly I remember, I've been consulting now for 21 years. And early on, I really tried to stay away from adding additional costs by bringing people on. But in order to make a greater impact and in order to really thrive and do work that you love and spend your time doing work that is of the highest value for your business and for those that you want to serve, you can't do it all. And so it's an important exercise for every consultant or service provider or coach out there to really look at where are you spending your time? What activities are you working on each and every day? What's low value? What's high value? And then to start to delegate. And it doesn't have to be, as you mentioned, David, you don't have to make the leap to bringing on full-time people right away. You can certainly use contractors, freelancers, part-time people. There's so many resources that are available to everyone these days with the digital world that we're in. So look at what can you do to start shifting some of the low value areas that you're spending your time on so that you can really focus more working on the business and not just in it all the time.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, there's the idea of adding fixed costs is anathema to a lot of. I'll just speak for myself here. That was something I did it, downsized. Yep. One time we had offices in 4 countries, and the whole idea of the way that work is being done today. And I'd be really interested in your take on this, Michael. As a consultant, I remember when I was doing work with Nokia. I ran Nokia's global leadership initiative for about 12 years as an external consultant to them. And one of the ways that we actually leveraged that was, use the word contractors. I did bring contractors in to help run the whole coaching piece that we were doing with them. And I was very clear that the modality or the methodology that these coaches worked with was going to be, theirs to do as long as the value core remained solid. So I brought folks into the fold that had similar values to what I was doing and what I was about in my life. So that's kind of the preface. As you look at hiring, either contractors or staff, where does that values conversation come into play for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. You know, even before, I think the big observation that I've had over the years that most consultants or people in this line of work tend to look at bringing people on as a cost and as an expense. They think, you know, if let's say they're using hourly fees, and I'm not a big proponent, I really think people should avoid hourly fees. But let's just say that you figured out that your average dollar value per hour is $250 per hour, and you look at that and go, well, you know, I don't want to give any of that money away to other people. I want to keep as much as I can in my own pocket. And so you hesitate to bring people on, but it's a mindset shift, because what you're not realizing is that every hour that you are doing work that you could get somebody else to do for $50 an hour, let's say, and there's a lot of great people, amazing talent out there that you can tap into for $50 an hour, you know, give or take, you're actually losing $200 an hour, right? Every hour that you're spending doing that low value work. So the mindset shift for a lot of people that I would encourage them to look at is bringing people on and building a team is actually not a cost. It's not an expense. It's an investment. It allows you to buy back your time. It allows you to shift to working on other areas that are more strategic to build your business. But really, to your point, Blaine, around the values, I think that's incredibly important. You know, making sure that as you bring people into your world, that you share the same values, that, you know, you can see them as part of the culture of the company, not only for the purpose of building the brand and making sure that everyone is aligned, but also ensuring that you are able to deliver consistent value to your clients. That, you know, at the end of the day, this business is all about relationships and it's all about value. And for people who have short-term mindsets that think more in terms of transaction, just getting in, you know, making some money and moving on, that's not the path that I would typically recommend people go. I think it's much more important that you think long-term. How can you provide value to those that you are serving? And that should drive everything that you do and every decision that you make.
So right. And Michael, you know, it's interesting because I think a lot of consultants have great situational knowledge and experience that they can monetize within the context of small, medium, and large size businesses. But I find that a lot of consultants can't do two things. And the first is they can't articulate the quantifiable value that they're asking for, that they're giving to be greater than they're asking for. That ask part is just a huge obstacle for them. And then two, they're just not faithful enough in themselves to guarantee their work. You know, I think every great consultant that I know, you know, from Marshall Goldsmith to Blaine Bartlett to, you know, all the world thought leaders that I've learned from and have built my business for, they have taught me to articulate the quantifiable value that I'm going to give, to exceed what I'm asking for, and then two, guarantee it. Just straight out guarantee it, whether it's a month by month or for the whole year. Like Marshall taught me, you know, he'll go into the biggest CEOs in the world, from Ford to Boeing, et cetera, and say, look, at the end of the year, you tell me what I was worth. And if it's zero, it's zero. I don't care. But that's how good I am. And I think those are two things that are lost. Why do you think the, you know, consultants, which have great situational knowledge experience, why do you think they have such a difficult time, number one, asking and being able to articulate their ask, but two, guaranteeing what they're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, the first part of that is because they don't know the right questions to ask. They tend to stay at a very superficial or surface level. You ask kind of about the project, you talk about your methodology, but you don't dig deep enough into really understanding what is the value of that engagement to the buyer, and what is their situation. Not only what potential return on investment can you create for them, but what is also the cost of inaction if they don't move forward right now. You know, what do they stand to lose? So being able to articulate value begins with being able to ask the right questions that really help you to get to a more deep and meaningful level, so that you can understand how to first of all identify that value and then be able to communicate it. That's point number one. The second thing that I would say is just confidence, right? If you're not comfortable coming out and saying, you know, here's what the fee is, here's the value, and really being able to communicate that value and asking for it, then you're not going to be able to receive higher fees. So I think the first part is, again, being very clear about learning how to identify the value. And that comes from asking really deep, meaningful questions. Like we see this a lot, David, where consultants will, you know, move into the proposal stage. And when we review their proposals and kind of talk to them about what they have there, they're not communicating value. And when we ask about that, it's because they haven't actually asked questions. They were too hesitant early on to ask those questions about, like, well, you know, what's your revenue right now? How much does it cost you to acquire a new client? Or why is this situation happening? How long has it been going on for? What happens if you don't make that change. And so asking those really deep, meaningful questions helps to identify the value that they can then communicate. And then they feel much more confident in asking for the fee or having that discussion around really what they want to create, because they've taken the time to really understand what is going on beyond the surface, which is unfortunately where most people stay.
Yeah, that whole focus on value. I was struck early on in the conversation here, Michael. You said you're not a fan of charging by the hour. I have counseled against that for probably 25 years, at least 25 years. The coaches that I've worked with said, don't charge by the hour. It's you have to be clear about the value that you're bringing to the table, and that's what organizes the fee structure. Yeah. So. Yeah,
definitely.
The value proposition. What's the value proposition that you're putting in front of your client? And they have to value that more than what it is that they're giving up. And
really, yeah. I was working in Japan many years ago, advising and consulting for some large organizations out there, and many times in that culture, everything was hourly fees. It was just a standard, and so you have to be comfortable and confident to go into a situation and try and educate and show them why, show whoever you're interacting with, like they might be used to, whoever your client is or the buyers, they might be used to doing things in that old way, but being open and sharing examples as to why that's not the best practice or not the best path to go down for both parties is really important. So yeah, I would encourage people to learn more about ROI-based fees and value-based fees, because it can make a significant difference in the profitability to every project that you take on, and really it's a win-win for both parties.
Michael, we share a belief. I have a strategy of know your what, know your who, know your how, but also know your now. And both your strategy is a now strategy. Your book is Act Now. You seem to feel as if this is a unique time in history where there's more opportunity than there ever has been, especially for success consulting. Why do you think we need to act now?
Yeah, so I wrote Act Now in April of 2020. So COVID was just starting to really get going, and what we saw in the industry were a lot of people kind of like deer, staring into headlights. They were frozen. They didn't know what to do, which was understandable. But when you look at history, we've had pandemics and economic challenges before, and we'll have them again. And so from concept to getting that book out there, we did it in about 3 to 4 weeks, really because we just wanted to encourage people to take action. And we armed them with some different perspectives and ideas that they could do to not only benefit now, but also set themselves up really well into the future. And you're right, now is a better time than ever. As you start off this kind of episode here today, David, you talk about how many organizations who may previously have not been that open to this idea of bringing in external expertise because they thought that they needed to have people in one physical location, right? They've now downsized. They've recognized and realized that you can actually not only survive, but you can thrive, and you can have people who are working at high levels of productivity spread out all across the world. And what this is actually allowing organizations to do is to tap into the best people, regardless of where they are in the world. And you can do it at a fraction of the cost of having full-time people, because you don't have to pay all the high salaries, the benefits, the insurance, all those other things that come with a full-time employee. So now I think is a really wonderful time for people who have expertise. And so I'm not suggesting that just anybody become a consultant. You really have to have expertise. You have to be able to provide a result and value to whoever you want to serve. But if you have that, then you have at least the starting ingredients to become a successful consultant. And that I think is very empowering for a lot of people, when you can take that expertise that you've developed and you've maybe only applied it for an employer who's benefited from that in the past, but now you can take that and actually apply it and benefit yourself, your family, your community, and make an impact on significantly more people than just one employer. So I think the tide has really kind of shifted to a position where consultants, freelancers, people who want to provide their expertise to the world are really, in a great place right now with a lot of opportunity in front of them.
Absolutely. We certainly have taken advantage of that opportunity, and anything we can do to work with you, obviously the opportunities in 450 consultants. You work with 75 industries around the world. So I'm looking right next to me at one of the world's best consultants, ones that I've learned a ton from. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Check him out at consultingsuccess.com. We posted it right up there. Come back and visit us. Tell us exactly what's going on. Thanks for opening up our industry.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure being with you.
Great to have you. Thank you.
You bet, Michael. Take care.
All right. We'll get warmed up. He knows what he's talking about. That's for sure. All right. We have Chris Guerriero here, and he's the founder of Club 28. He is the host of the Built to Grow show, and we're all built to grow. The whole universe is built to grow, Chris. You know that, and I know that. I know. Let's talk about growing something that's important to me, company culture. I think we've had a tremendous shift in the paradigm of culture, understanding what's happened in the last 12 months. But yet it seems to me, at least in my company and so many others I know, that we have expansive growth, acceleration that's occurring. What's the difference between companies that are able and capable of growing right now, culture-wise, compared to those that may have, failed the test of time and the test of COVID?
That's a great question. I think it's, the companies that are growing the greatest are the ones who are taking advantage of the fact that, number one, there's a tremendous amount of talent out there right now. Number two, culture is simple to create now because there's so much pain out there, so much lack of security out there, that when we find a company that has that kind of security and offers it, that culture is almost an automatic experience after that.
Oh, very interesting.
One of the other things, just kind of the disruption that this has caused, and you say that it's a great time for culture development. In my experience, in 30, 40 years, a lot of cultures have just kind of organically developed without a whole lot of intentionality behind it. And one of the things that I'm noticing is that there is now an opportunity to intentionally plant seeds that will, from a cultural perspective, position the organization to move to a different level. You don't get breakthroughs without breakdowns. And there's an interest so there's an interesting possibility here for intentional cultures, because culture will eat strategy for breakfast, quite frankly. So you want to have a culture that supports the planting of the seed of tomorrow. You don't want to return back to normal, because normal was not working well in so many ways.
Yeah,
what are you doing around that right now with your Club of 28 and those sorts of things?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
I said, how are you positioning that with the business leaders that you're working with?
So we position inside of my organizations, because I have several companies of our own inside of our portfolio. Then one day a week we work with a handful of other companies in Club 28. The way we're positioning it is we make sure that we have our values set, because the great majority of companies, unfortunately, they allow culture to develop, like you were talking about. And that culture is just developed on whatever is happening, like whatever people want inside the company, which makes it very, very individualized instead of a unit. Units, teams are created by instilling a great set of values. And when a company, especially the leader inside of a company, understands what the values are, and that drips down, and the culture is built around those values, then no matter what happens in the economy, as long as they're sticking to those values, the culture gets stronger and stronger and stronger. As soon as there's no value, as soon as there's lack of clarity in the team as to what kind of decisions the company is going to make, because they're making decisions based on economy or something that's happening instead of based on their values, then the culture breaks down very, very quickly.
Yeah. And beyond, culture, you seem to codify things in an interesting way, creating, as you stated, the blueprint to success in the key components of being an entrepreneur, or I assume more of a small business that you put together, these 8-figure businesses that you work with specifically in the Club 28. So what are some of the blueprint things that you've learned that are the keys to being successful, profitable, passionate, and purposeful in what they're doing?
I'd say if I were to break it down to a blueprint, number one, I would focus on team. And before I focus on team, again, I'm going to come back to culture. I would always build culture before team, because the best team members are attracted to great culture, no matter what size the company is. Inside of our companies, whether we're just starting the entity or it's 10, 20 years old, we always focus on making sure the culture is incredibly tight. Number one, because great people are attracted to it, but number two, the people who stick with us the longest, we've got people inside of some of our companies that have been with us for 20 plus years, and they're here because they're part of the family, because they feel heard, because they understand that what they are doing is part of something really, really big. They see that their efforts are part of growing something that they're proud of. They understand that their company is there for them as much as they are there for the company, and that's all, based on culture. But so if I were to break it down to a blueprint, number one, I'd look at team, but before I look at team, I'd have to go back to culture.
Yeah. The word culture, we use it a lot, and everybody hears it a lot, particularly in business conversations. It's a word kind of like trust. In my sense of in experience here, we use trust a lot, but not a lot of people take the time to really define what they mean by trust. And I'm curious, what does, for you, when you think of culture, what is it that you're really talking about?
I'm talking about creating a unity inside of the environment inside the company. So when people understand, when your team, when they feel like they're part of a family, when they understand that they are there and you're there as a company to help them develop as people and develop as leaders inside of that company, so that they can continue to grow, so that they know that when they're there, they don't have to just use that as a stepping stone, but they are there to build part of their future. Mm-hmm. Like that's what we try to instill in them. We instill that through making sure that when people are hired, they understand exactly what they're being hired for. We're incredibly clear about what they're accountable to and what they could expect from the company. We have regular team meetings. Like, one of the cornerstones of each one of our companies is our morning meetings. And in our morning meetings, we go over a small handful of things, but every single person has an opportunity to share what they are working towards, to see what everybody else is working towards, so that they could see that this is a team effort, and to go over whatever their biggest obstacle is, so that we as a team, not just one person is facing an obstacle, but we as a team can help each person break through their obstacles, so that everybody feels like they're growing something in unity.
So one of the challenges I've had myself in multiple businesses that I've run since my 20s is that I've always taken that approach: values, culture, and family. And the one that was most difficult for me was this idea that a company is a family. Because with the accelerated growth that occurs, especially over the last decade, that things change, and families don't change in their skills, their knowledge, and the capabilities of expectations. A family is based off of trust and love and all these things that I want to have in my culture. But the problem is that companies that I've had have outgrown family members. Yeah, and it becomes very difficult to pay someone that's not performing when you've built a culture around family, and there's this expectation. And then the other holds true too with the younger sales force, is that you're used to guys or people, that would want to stay for a lifetime and be part of your family. And, you pour your life and soul into them, and 3 years down the road, without any notification, like, hey man, I decided to move to Sacramento because I can make more money and buy a house, without telling you. And, I know you're not supposed to have a need to be resentful, but I think it's very difficult today to consider your company a family. You keep mentioning family. Do you see any of this downside or challenges by treating your company like a family?
Do I see any downsides to it? There's downsides to everything. I certainly have experienced what you're talking about, where you invest a lot of time and effort and trust into somebody, and then they turn around, they say, hey, listen, I don't, I see a better opportunity, a little bit of greener pastures. And one of the ways that we get around that is the understanding that we have the ability to bond with and influence in a good way everybody inside of our organization when they're inside of our organization, but we don't have the ability to have that voice in their life when they're not with us, when they're with their spouse or with their family or other people.
So it's like having teenagers.
Exactly. Oh my God, exactly. It's a wonderful example. So when they leave you and they're at home that night, there's pillow talk and there's other conversations where they're being influenced by other people. So what we try to do a lot is we try to bring family into our organizations, and we make sure that anytime we have the ability to impact somebody's family, we do it, whether that's inviting them to business parties, which obviously we don't do a lot during
Well,
COVID.
what about the other side of it? Like that your business has outgrown them because technology has changed, the situation has changed, and here you've represented yourself as, a fatherly figure that cares more about them than
Right.
your company, but you just can't afford to keep them because they're not performing.
Yeah. So as soon as that happens, so we have sit downs with people on a regular basis, performance reviews, and people know where we stand and they know who we need and what kind of things we need inside of that box in the organizational chart. So if they're not doing the 4 or 5 bullet points that we absolutely need in there, then we have a meeting with them. We show them in writing, what we have talked about during that meeting. So here's what we need. Here's what you are doing. You're missing this one vital aspect that's holding back the rest of the team. You understand that. Let's work together. We try to help them as a team to get them back on track. But in 30 days, if we have another one of those meetings, then it's apparent that we have to find them another position, whether that's inside of our company, because often our project manager is great for us up to $8 million, but that same project manager is not good at $30 or $40 million. We have to move them around. If we love them and they are really great at other things, we could keep them inside of our organization, or I call other people who I know who have other companies, and we try to find them another position someplace else.
So in one sense, then what I'm hearing you really talk to is that the way the culture is showing up, it's the ways we agree to work with each other in this environment we call this business.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's for you. What I'm hearing, Chris, and I love this, is that it's an objective citation of the ways that we agree to work with each other, not a subjective one. It's not out of sight, So that's the distinction between organic and intentional. Okay?
Absolutely. And it all comes back to clarity. So in the beginning, when that relationship is beginning, when we are sitting down and when we're putting the job description out there, we're very, very clear in who we need. When we have them sitting in front of us during the first or second or third interview, because we never do just one interview, we go through so much, and those interviews might be with their potentially direct report. It may be with the entire team, so that we could see if they're a culture fit. And then it might be the final one might be with me, where we're actually sitting down and we're having a heart-to-heart about other things, what their goals are now and 5 and 10 years into the future. And after all of that, we bring them on board, and then we hold them accountable to what we agreed from the job description all the way into those interviews. They would be held accountable to, and we make sure that we are doing what we promised as a company also.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I know. Well, I think it is much like the book behind you, right? You have to be a compassionate capitalist to drive value and culture and family before profit. But in the long run, I think you drive more profit that way. And we've proven that, the three of us, I think, in our perspective of what you teach, Chris. So thank you so much. Now, everybody can find you at chrisguerriero.com. Is there anyone else or anywhere else you'd like them to reach out?
If they go to YouTube, we have a tremendous amount of free content on YouTube, on LinkedIn and Instagram, just to help people understand the different ways that we scale our companies inside of my portfolio and how I help other companies to scale past 8 figures.
I love it, man. Well, thank you so much. You're giving a great service to so many different people. I appreciate you. Come visit us again soon.
Thanks,
Chris.
Have a nice
Take care.
Cool. What a nice perspective. It's like I sat there almost in pain because he has such a big heart, and I'm like, I wish it was as easy as he said it was. And I know the challenges, but I agree with him 100% on what he does. And I do the same thing. And how much time I spend trying to place other people, other places if they're not a good fit. But I bet I spent a good 10 years not figuring out that it's okay to let someone go.
Well, and that's part of the family thing too, I think, David, honestly, and that's why I wanted to mark out explicit agree. This is the way we explicitly agree to work in this family. And if you don't want to go along with that, then love you, mean it. We'll find another home for you.
Nice. Well, we have a mensch coming on now, Sam Lucci. He is unbelievable. Think More, React Less educational initiative. Basically, he's one of the 1,000 that I'm looking for that's going to help empower the collective consciousness of happiness, because in my opinion, the think more, react less philosophy is going to get us to a place of enlightenment. Welcome, Sam. How are you?
Fine, thank you. What a welcome you gave me.
Oh, well, you're just on such.
Appreciate it.
It's just such a neat program that you have, and I was hoping you could give us a little bit of an overview for the people that aren't aware of Think More, React Less.
Sure. I think I like to put it this way. I like to start by explaining function and dysfunction. Okay. You hear these words tossed around, dysfunctional and functional. We tend to think of dysfunctional people who are kind of like off the wall and having problems and so forth. But I don't look at it that way. Dysfunction to me is when your emotions and your intellect is not working together, and function is when they do. Now, when your emotions and intellect are working together, then you can think, you can make choice, you can make intelligent decisions. When they're not, you're going to react, and almost always you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage. That's probably the best way I could use it to explain it. So I wrote a book called Think More, React Less. The problem is that until you really get sensitized to this, you don't know when you're thinking and when you're not. And we usually end up rationalizing that we are thinking when we're not. And today, thinking is becoming a lost art. I like to think, I think a lot about the world and what's happening. And, it seems there's so much turmoil and so much discourse. And I think, the only way to bring this world back to sanity is through business, because in business, if you're not thinking, you're not going to react, you're not going to stay. So if there's any amount of quantity of thinking going on, it's in the business. I look to the business community to be our salvation, to bring us back to a sane place. So, dysfunction when my intellect and emotion won't work together, function when they are. So that's the book, Think More, React Less. Well, what causes us to be functional and dysfunctional? It's real simple. Okay. I have a patent pending on this process, and the B code that I make, which I call it an owner's manual for a person, and then the breakout process, which is, one of it explains the problem, but the other part fixes the problem. So fixing the problem is more important than just understanding it. But what happens, and some of this you'll understand is normal, and some of it took me 40, 50 years to unravel. But as we dance through life, our emotional system, without our participation and without our permission, that's so important, without our participation, without our permission, what it does is it gives meanings to things that we call beliefs or opinions. I mean, everybody knows that. I didn't come up with that observation. Everybody knows that. But what everybody doesn't know is the depth of what it does, and how it is completely impacting your life. Once you form one of these, you can call them opinions, call them beliefs, whatever you want. Whenever you form one of these, and your system does it, even as we speak, we could be forming them as we go. I might be looking at you and forming one. You could be looking at me and forming one. So it's an automatic function. And once they get planted inside you, they live in there, they take on a life of their own, and then they make you do what you do. So human behavior to me now is an exact science. I know exactly what makes me do what I do, and I've been able to get that pretty much under control. If I'm trying to work with a client or help somebody or train a salesperson, which is how this all started, I can see clearly what's going on all the time. It's a body of knowledge that is extremely deep, because it's my passion. It's what I do every day. I think about it and work with it all the time. But once I identify your belief system, especially like in a sale or when I'm trading, then I know what you're going to do. I always say, and I'm not a bragger, that if you give me an hour and we get in an honest discussion, I'll write the epitaph for your tombstone and it'll be accurate unless you change it. Now, up to now, we've been stuck with that. We really have been stuck with that. And this all came about owning my own small businesses and having to create salespeople. And, you don't find them walking around on the street. I can go all the way back to about 1976 attempting to do this. At first, I didn't get much results at all, or many results. And, and then I started with skills training, and I got improvement with that. And then probably maybe as much as 25 or 30 years ago, I realized there's more to it. And then I got on to attitude. I read Think and Grow Rich, which was a wonderful book. And that got, Napoleon Hill makes this promise: what the mind can conceive, can believe, it can achieve. And I know it was true. I couldn't make it work, and I knew, but it was true. It was me, not the information. So I set out to prove that. Napoleon Hill says there's no way to explain man's indifference to himself. My B code and breakout process explains clearly why man is indifferent to himself and how to fix that. So this is the stuff that'll make the promise in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich book work. And it really does. It works. We're getting salespeople now to double and sometimes triple, but I have to be honest. I never want to oversell. Not every salesperson is trainable. You have to self-select into the group. You have to be ready to want to make the change, to take a deep look into yourself, find out what's holding you back, and then do something about it. And we have the tools. Without the tools, it's nearly impossible, because you're going to stumble around like I did. And I tried everything I could think of, any known program, and they all have merit, and they all have a lot of good stuff in them. And but without this understanding, you couldn't make it work, because nobody realizes. People say, well, yeah, I understand, I have beliefs. Yeah, you understand, but you don't know what they do to you. One little belief, one lousy little belief that you couldn't possibly know you have will stop you dead cold. Things like, you want to increase your income. I have people right now, I'm training a half a dozen for myself right now. You want to increase your income. You could have a belief that, you deserve to be punished because you stole a cookie when you were 8 years old and got reprimanded for it. And I mean it. It actually can be that silly, but you have to find that, and you have to get rid of that. And now we have it quantified into a program with 8 foundational breakouts, I call it, to set you up for this. And that's not the end, that's the beginning. And then it becomes a way of life. Every day I check my attitude and see where I'm going. See, the way it works, when you set a goal, and we're basically talking about business here, I think, or life. When you set a goal, your subconscious mind, as Napoleon Hill said, it will deliver. But the first thing it does when it delivers, it has to clear out every impediment that you have, everything that you have that won't allow it to work. It has to come up so you can get rid of it. Well, when it comes up, what does that mean? That means adversity in my life. I have setbacks. Well, when I get setbacks, what do? When I set a goal, I tend to lose heart, or I forget, or I quit. That's why diets don't work. That's why New Year's resolutions don't work. That's why the AA programs, although they're wonderful, they don't have a great success rate, because you didn't go in there and find the reason why I'm over drinking, or I'm a drug addict, or why I'm, keep finding the same mate that wants to beat me up, as you see so many women to do. I mean, it's these things. There's no more mystery to it. It's an exact science to me. Now, here's the thing that again, in business, I love business. I'm a capitalist. I call myself a capitalist with a conscience. Okay, I love to make money. I love to give it away. I think even more. You have to share. I don't get up in the morning just to make money. I get up in the morning to help people, and if you help people, you will make money. The law of compensation: give before you expect to receive. I've lived with that even before I knew what it was. But here's the thing in business. I'll take my own business. It was just a little business. We probably did around $3 to $4 million for many, many years. And I'm in a remodeling business. I own Cabinet World and Bath Fitter with a partner, and here in Pittsburgh region. And it was a $3 or $4 million business. And then I started to, learn and work with this. It started to grow. Now we're pretty much on steroids. Well, I think we'll hit 20 million this year, which is big for our type of an industry. And in a couple of years, we're going to franchise this. We're going to actually franchise the kitchen business, which has never been done. And why? Because I can help people become salespeople. That's well. I had that dream when I was 30 years old, but I didn't know how to do it. Now that I do, we're actually going to get it done. But the reason what I want to say next is that, see, how much power do you have in your business? I have total power in mine because I'm the dominant one. That sounds good. It's also bad, because every lousy belief that I had that was holding me back, holding that company back, holding people back, was stamped in my business. And mostly what I'm doing now to make my business grow is just taking off the impediments that I had put on it without even realizing that I had. So as I change, my business changes and it grows and it prospers. I did a lot of consulting with business owners and sales staffs, probably from about 2006 to maybe 2012. I had quite a few clients. We had something called a CEO Alliance, and we had a dinner at the Le Mans every month. It was really nice. And then I just kind of put the whole thing to bed because I couldn't get the results I wanted. You know, a business owner would hire me to train their salespeople, and they couldn't get the job done. And the reason I couldn't get the job done is most of them weren't interested, which tells me that most of the people we hire, salespeople, are hiring failures. And there were no tools. I didn't have this perfected like I do now, and I was working hard to try to make up the difference. But going back to the owners, I helped quite a few owners. I helped one owner move. You know, he's living in Florida now, and he runs his printing business here in Pittsburgh. And I had another one. He had two businesses. He got rid of one and kept the other, and he's in lifestyle. I have another one. His daughter's selling his business to his daughter, and he has a good lifestyle. So I was able to be successful with some of them. But you know, what if you have power? Everything that every belief that you have is going to be stamped in that business, and I guarantee you, it's holding it back.
Yeah,
You know,
it's interesting, yeah, Sam. You
Sure.
speak about power. Yeah, I mean, and you also speak about Think and Grow Rich. David and I both were featured in the movie and in the book Think and Grow Rich: The Legacy. So the idea that what is manifested in my life is sourced out of my thinking. It literally is. That's exactly how that whole process works. And for you, I'm interested. Just you are from your perspective and with your words, the power in your business. But you've also got other people in there. How are you organizing them, their thinking, so that there is alignment with what it is that you're envisioning and how they see their participation in it?
That's a great question, and it's one that I'm still working with very diligently. All of my effort went to salespeople because without revenue, you don't have anything to worry about. If you don't have money, you don't have any options, right? So all of my effort went to salespeople. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, I started to realize, hey, wait a minute, this isn't just for salespeople, this is for everybody. So I have a management team, and I don't get involved in the day-to-day of my business anymore. I get more like an overview, But I'm in the process of going back and cleaning up the past, like fulfillment, for instance. I'm looking hard at that, and in all sections of it. So how do I get them to work together? Okay, I have come to the realization that my management team needs the same training as my salespeople. So 2 days ago, I hired my first full-time trainer, and I don't have the time to do it. So I hired a full-time trainer. I'm going to train the trainer, and he's going to train my salespeople and my management team. See, to get people on the same page, they have to get rid of their opinions or beliefs. I mean, beliefs are unless they are similar or agree, then they're going to fight with each other. And they don't always. Usually, it's covert. I mean, if you have an opinion and it's causing you to do what you do, and it will. If it's counterproductive to what the team's trying to do, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, if you're a gentleman or a lady, you're polite about it, but it's still there and it's still getting in the way. So what I want to do with my management team is take them through the same training. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Because it is a function of just how you start to shift the mindset and the idea of between Viktor Frankl's quote, and you're probably very familiar with it, between event and reaction, there's a space. That's the place I want to stop and think, because that's where I have my leverage. Reaction is a consequence of feeling off balance. I've been knocked off balance, and the recovery oftentimes is not particularly elegant. It's because the whole source or the whole intent is just to get back to a state of balance, regardless of what the consequences are. Yeah. So
that's functional. See, I've got myself pretty much to a point where I can stay stable. I can stay in the middle. Now, 40 years ago, I didn't even know there was a middle. I was all over the place.
Yeah, all of us know that. Well, Sam,
I was all over the place. I used to say, it's funny. See, I always ask the question, why do intelligent people do such unintelligent things? Never saw myself. Everything I did, I thought it was perfect. But if I saw somebody else do something, boy, that's a no-brainer. Why are you doing that? Because I didn't understand. See, that's the problem. It's a science. First of all, you have to take a look at the B code chart that I made. It's free. It's on Think More React Less. It's free. Everybody can have it for free, and validate it in your own mind. By God, this is the way I work. Nobody gave you an owner's manual. It is an owner's manual. It'll tell you exactly what's going on. Once you validate it, then you say to yourself, okay, I look at what my behavior. I mean, I'm trying to take the B code. I wanted the whole world to have it before I die. I don't want it to die with me. That's a pretty big job for a little boy coming, from Pittsburgh like me. I've never done major things with major people. I want to get this thing over the whole world. I'll bet I have 200 beliefs that I had to get out of the way to be able to. I wouldn't have been able to be on this podcast a year ago. I would have felt like, geez, they're going to accept my information, they're going to say, who are you? You don't even have a degree. Well, I do have a degree in psychology, and thank God I don't, because if I did, I'd never found this stuff, see. But see, I mean it. When Napoleon Hill said what the mind can conceive and believe, he was right. But you know what I found out? What the mind doesn't believe, it does achieve, and that's all there is. That's the only difference. What the mind does believe, it does achieve. And if you believe it, it'll come true in your life. So what you do is you look at your life and say, what's working, what isn't? What do I want that I don't have? What am I getting that I don't want? You'll find a belief is there at every point, and work on that. And it's not, you brush your teeth every day because you have to. You take a shower every day because you have to. And you have to do this every day if you want to move yourself forward. It's a way of life. It is not a
to the choir, my friend.
It's not a one and done.
You're singing our song. Well, Sam, we certainly appreciate you. I want everyone to share in that B code. They can reach you at thinkmore/reactless.com. We posted up there for everyone to share. What I love about your philosophy is one that I share as well, which is, hey, we have the capability. Everything is ours already, our health, our wealth, and our happiness. Let's clear out what interferes with it. Thank you so much for joining us. We got Noah in the wings there, or we
Thanks, Sam.
Going. Come back and visit, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Awesome. What a nice man.
Yeah. Pittsburgh Steelers.
You got that semi-Midwest / East Coast just genius going of the world of hard knocks. He's learned it through his experience. All right, we got another genius coming on, Noah Lichtenstein, crossover VC. Welcome, Noah. How are you?
Doing great. Good to be here.
Good to have you here.
I have that Don Quixote that stands behind you, by the way. And I got a lot of footballs as well. But I want to talk about crossover fun. I want to talk about what you're doing with your own 2-minute drill newsletter. And I know it's not promoting my TV show, but I'm all for it. I didn't make up the 2-minute drill. And of course, you have a weekly show on Clubhouse as well. And teaming up with tech, sports. This guy, we might as well could just talk forever like Sam. We'll be fine. Give us a little bit of a background on the crossover VC. We'll start there.
Yeah, I mean, in short, Crossover is an early stage venture capital fund. So if you look at what the primary drivers of the economy are, it's technology and healthcare. And I think what's shifted is that a lot of that wealth creation is shifted from the public markets into the private markets. And so I think a lot of people wake up and they say, do I believe that technology will be a bigger part of the economy in 10 years than it is today? Well, if you believe it is, the public markets don't really provide that adequate, diversified exposure to the tech sector anymore. And so what our crossover fund does is provides diversified and risk-adjusted access to investing in the technology sector, the private technology sector. And I guess one thing that's a little unique about our fund is that a large percentage of our investor base happen to be professional athletes and entertainers, and it's not about using their name or image or likeness. It's more about we're a trusted guide to help those individuals come into the sector alongside the traditional folks who have traditionally had that access.
Before you ask your question, Blaine, because I got to bring this up.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. You and Blaine both grew up on farms in rural Oregon.
Oh, my God.
And yet somehow you have evolved from the farmland into hyper-intellectual, technologically investment economic status that is, to me, I'm sitting here going, how's it these kids from Oregon on the farm? I have another one who's extremely savvy in Dallas, another friend of mine who is a doctor and a professor and has written books, and he's just an economic genius. What's going on in rural Oregon that I'm not picking up on?
Well, I did this 23andMe study, and it says I'm like 22% blueberry. So,
there you go. We used to raise blueberries on the farm.
Pig farmer. What kind of farmer were you, Blaine?
Oh, we had dairy. We had a lot of the work I did was peppermint.
Wow.
Yeah, we did the area of the state, it grows, I think 80% of the peppermint that's used in the country is grown in the Willamette Valley of Oregon. And
they grow great quarterbacks there too, like Dan.
They grow
Fouts.
great quarterbacks. And, Mary Morrissey is also from Oregon.
Oh, so great anointed human beings, thought leaders are from there. I got it.
Yes.
All right, Blaine, I'll let you ask your question. I just had to ask.
Well, yeah, you'd mentioned disruption, not disruption so much as tech and healthcare. Just the whole that market sector, and I say market sector, with some caveats. But is there anything that Crossover is doing that you're actually investing in that is designed to move us from illness profit structures to wellness? And it's an ill-formed question, but I spent a lot of time in healthcare, hospital systems and docs. I do a lot of work with them, so I'm very intrigued with things that are emerging in that space.
No, it's a great question, and look, as a fund, we're primarily focused on consumer-oriented technologies. But that said, I think that there is a massive spectrum of disruption that's happening that ranges from, on the consumer side, a transition from, on-premise clinic visits to telehealth. I talk a lot about how the pandemic has been an accelerant of this transition from traditional, doctor's visits to telehealth. I mean, my dad's was a family practice doctor for 30 plus years. And so it's interesting to see even him and my mom now adopting telehealth and recognizing that we've been forced to try something new. And, it's actually pretty good for most of the things. It's more convenient and less costly. You're also seeing a shift in companies. I'm not an investor in it, but my friend Adrian came on our Clubhouse show on Tuesday because his company Forward Health just raised a $250 million round of funding. And they basically said, you know what, we're going to throw the healthcare primary care model out the window and we're going to start from first principles. Instead of getting healthcare through your employer or through an insurer whose incentives are aligned with profit and getting your flu shot and short-term care, they're saying, let's reimagine the discipline of healthcare from an outcomes-based perspective where we're aligning the patient's best interest with profit. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that. But of course, there's also technologies that are helping improve efficiencies and bookings and back office and appointments and all the data that's siloed about your health. How do you actually streamline that while keeping it, private and HIPAA compliant? So the short answer is, I think any segment of the healthcare ecosystem that you have seen is being reimagined through technology, and that's a trend you'll see across all of the major sectors.
Yeah, I think. I do a fair amount of work with IDEO, the design firm, and one of their major initiatives is in the healthcare space. And I want to see what they're doing there.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll give you one company we did invest in. It's called Clio. And Clio is focused on, it's a digital health platform that helps parents and working parents from considering all the way to having a child to post-pregnancy. And it's offered through employers to their employees. So now all of Apple's employees, all of Uber's employees, all of Salesforce employees now have this benefit that helps them go from considering to fertility to lactation consulting to sleep training, all of that stuff, which provides better patient outcomes. And also it makes for a healthier workforce, which means less attrition, fewer missed work days. And it's amazing to see how technology can support that.
Love it. David?
I was going to say, I love the fund. I love the idea. The one thing that I'm super impressed with, from running the most notable sports agency in the world to Warren and I having sports market, I probably have more relationship capital in the space. And I've always been someone who did not like to have the celebrities, athletes, and entertainers invest. I'd love to use them as bug lights to attract the investors, and then later stage allow them to invest or give them equity for participating as a bug light. I'm curious where that relationship for you, because you do have some top athletes and entertainers that you get to stroke checks beyond become bug lights. Where do you see the differentiator between the strategy that I've utilized for 35 years of using them as bug lights to actually taking their money?
It's such a great question, and I'm so glad you asked it. Look, I had no intent of going into this business to bring in athletes and entertainers. I mean, I love sports. I'm a fan. I've played my whole life, but that was never my intent. But what happened was two things. First of all, the modern athlete, as we like to call it, is different than prior generations. This is a generation that grew up on technology. I mean, they grew up on these devices. And this is a generation that, because of technology, their brands are so much more powerful than past generations. So in a past generation, maybe you had to be Michael Jordan to get the attention, but now you can be the 8th man on the Milwaukee Bucks, and you still have power in your brand because of technology. And the second thing that happened is that today's athletes make way more money than prior generations. Again, that 8th man on the Bucks could be making $10 million a year. And I think last time I did the study, something like 180 currently playing NBA players either make or are guaranteed to make 25 million or more. So we're talking about folks who have made enough money to be set for life. They get their stocks, their bonds, their financial plan. But if you believe that technology is this driver of wealth creation and it's happening in the private markets, they kind of look to their right to their agent, and their agent says, that's not what I do. They look to the left to their wealth advisor, and their wealth advisor doesn't have access to this asset class. And so it left a gap in the market. And you couple that with some of today's leaders who are really, again, to borrow the cliche from LeBron, more than an athlete, but you're seeing the success of people like LeBron, Kobe was doing this, Serena Williams, Andre Iguodala, Kevin Durant. And you're left with this list of about 8 to 10 individual athletes who are now leveraging what they've done on the court or the field to unlock opportunities that are not tied to them doing brand endorsements or being a Bug Light or getting endorsement deals. It's literally, how do I use my platform and power to unlock opportunities in the types of companies that don't actually need my name or likeness? It could be a software, a SaaS company. And so the final point on this is that this next generation looks up to these individuals. They have the capital. They're excited. So they're looking for a resource to say, how can I get involved in this sector that's higher risk in a way that's more trusted, risk-adjusted, and diversified? And that's where we kind of step in. And so one thing that's really important about Crossover is that the athletes and entertainers that are investors in our fund, we make all the decisions. They're putting their money in right alongside me and my partners and all of our executives and founders of big tech companies. And the companies we invest into don't use the name, image, likeness without the permission. That's what their teams are here for. I'm not trying to be your agent. I'm not trying to be your wealth advisor. I am focused on tech. And I'm excited to learn from folks like you, David, because I'm new to this sports world, and I've been learning how to work with the right folks and how we can be a resource. And we do work with some of the players associations where they bring us in to just help teach. The way I like to lead is with teaching and education. We don't need the athlete money, but there's so much demand that we want to be a resource that's trusted and get rid of this idea of the dumb money. It's the modern athlete. How can we support them?
Beautiful.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. And I think one of the things I always forget is I'm getting so old. I forget you got the 8th and 9th man off the bench with $100 million contracts that I've never even heard their names. So it's, the old FU money, as they say, is much larger and capable of investing. Well, I am so amazed at what you're doing. I can't wait to come on your clubhouse and join your group as well and help add some war stories that may be fairly entertaining. And where can people find Crossover? It's crossovervc.com. Anywhere else to find your clubhouse? What's the name of and what days are your show?
No, thank you. Crossovervc.com. We keep a pretty low profile, but we have our Instagram, same handle, crossovervc. But yeah, we do 2 things. The 2-minute drill. We have a weekly show every Tuesday morning on Clubhouse at 8 a.m. Pacific. It's myself, longtime NBA veteran Jared Jeffries, and business executive Kat Cole. 3 of us host it, and a different motley crew of pro athletes come up on stage. And the goal is to cover 5 top tech stories each week and to break it down in a way where we throw away the insider speak. We just talk about what these companies are, why they're interesting. And, we'll have anywhere from 20 to 40,000 people listen in that given hour. And we're excited to have a conversation. So stop by if you want to learn more.
All right.
Absolutely, man. I would love to join and share some stories as well. So thank you very much, Noah. We'll talk to you soon. See you on Clubhouse.
Thanks, Noah. I'll check you out.
All right.
2-minute drill, a competition. Healthy competition. This is good.
There is no competition. We all that 2-minute drill is out there a million different times. Kind of like elevator pitch. I never was worried about the name. Just helping people understand in its varying degrees. Takeaway for the day.
Takeaway, just real quick. I know you got to go here. You're on a deadline. Innovation. That's the one that just kind of jumps out at me, and it's kind of embedded in a lot of the conversations we had this hour. But each of these guys, and they're interesting, all guys on the show today. They're innovating in their own ways, and it's for me, given the soul of business theme of this office hours, you start looking at imagination as the threshold into the soul, and innovation is a consequence of that. So whether it's as a VC fund, whether it's uncovering belief systems, developing culture, whatever it might be, if you're tapping into that spirit, innovation is going to be the consequence. So I'll just kind of leave it at that right now.
Yeah, for me, takeaway was how situational knowledge and experience always leads to the same principles. Like all four, it's always leading to value, culture, happiness. All four people are value-based leaders, and they all have varying backgrounds, varying ages, but through their situational knowledge, no matter where they came from blueberry farming or, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, selling cabinetry, Michael, being a coach himself, it's incredible. Situational knowledge always leads to good values and culture and happiness. And those are some of the things that you taught me and you write about in all your great books. They can learn it from you at learnblainebartlett.com/LMM Mindset Mastermind. I have so many of my friends telling me how great it is as well. So keep on sending people to you. Keep up the great work, my friend. I will see you very soon.
Very soon, actually. Yes. Take care. Love you, buddy.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, everyone. That was incredible. Blaine hours. Real quickly, tomorrow starts at 5 a.m. with office hours, 6 a.m. Clubhouse, 11 a.m. Pacific, all Pacific time, is our trainings on innovation versus entrepreneur. Remember, most importantly, you can reach me, david@dmeltzer.com, david@dmeltzer.com. Be kind to your future self and do good deeds. Have a great night. Thank you, Maddie. Welcome to Office Hours. I'm Dave Meltzer, author, speaker, entrepreneur. Office Hours is a show with entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. And we're going to dive deep into the mindset of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, how to start, how to scale, and how to exit. We're going to talk to the celebrities, the athletes, the entertainers, the billionaires, all who want to be or are entrepreneurs. And we're going to find out what it takes to have that desire that you must be what you can be, to make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. And we're going to get inside the mindset of the entrepreneur.
You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together.
We can handle hard, but it's long that bothers us. I really encourage every entrepreneur to think hard and smart, but I really give a lot of weight to an entrepreneur that works long.
I don't want to be exclusive. I don't want to create a product that's only for one person. I want it to be for everyone.
I think the beauty of a values-based approach to business is that it sets a compass in place that you can follow, whether you're dealing with a COVID, a pandemic, an economy, social unrest, or a roaring economy.
The best investment you have to make is a bet on yourself. And that's exactly what you're saying. And that's emotionally, that could be monetarily, that could be time. There's so many different, that could be giving.
The one consistent thing about them and everybody here is that just like every good house, they've got a strong foundation of core values and work ethic, right? Every last one of them spoke about the things that shaped them, and they still implement those things no matter when they jump from here to here to here, they're still doing the same things that got them to the first place.
I still remember when we bought YouTube, and it seemed like we're going to pay billions of dollars for this company that has no revenue and not even a plan to get revenue. But now it's a key part of the Alphabet strategy.
Right, a rising tide lifts all ships, and that's what's happening here. You create that elevated frequency, that elevated energy that everyone benefits from.
If you appreciate what we all are the same, it allows us to appreciate how different we are. And I say appreciate the differences. And I think that separation that exists today is something that we all need to work on, because together we'll go far. Come join me inside the greatest minds of entrepreneurship here on Office Hours.